Hello, everybody. Welcome to 3-Point Perspective, the podcast about illustration, how to do it, how to make a living at it, and how to make an impact in the world with your art. I'm Jake Parker.
I'm Lee White.
And I'm Will Terry, and all three of us are professional illustrators. We've all worked for all the major publishers in the business. Together, we published around 75 children's books, and we've all taught illustration at university art schools.
Now, each week we come at you guys with awesome questions from our listeners or fantastic interviews from famous illustrators. Sometimes we agree, sometimes we argue, but each time you learn something brand spanking new.
Or not.
That's right. Today, our questions come to us from our direct supporters, the direct supporters of this podcast. And we thank you for those questions. So before we get into it, have you guys seen Photoshop's update?
I heard about it, but I haven't seen it.
The AI button that's on there?
Yeah. Have you seen the demos for it?
No.
I was kidding.
Good?
No, you're not.
I was kidding.
You're not.
Oh my gosh! Well, you haven't
kidding,
seen
but that's
that?
what it is.
Yeah, it's on all over Facebook right now. That
Oh no!
Photoshop's trying to get rid of the artist.
Essentially, what it does is, I've been using autofill for like the last year, and is the best tool on Facebook, or not on Facebook, on Photoshop, because essentially I'm always going back in and like just doing pretty fast like fixes to stuff where I need to remove something and have the background like seamlessly fit in with everything else.
Mm-hmm.
And you can go in and airbrush it and you can kind of try and get the texture, but I use a lot of like noise filters and things like that. So to really match it up, it's hard to do that manually. But with autofill, you can just select an area and then tell it what areas for it to pull to reference from. So you could say, don't reference the character, but reference the clouds over here. And then it does a pretty good job like filling it in. There's some weird wonky stuff that it does sometimes.
Then you go in and fix it
in Photoshop. Well,
I use it all the time too for opening up like you need to extend the canvas. That's what I always use it like. Oh man, impossible. So you just fill it. It gets about 80%, and then you got to fix a couple little spots.
Well, the new AI autofill does the rest. Like you have, let's say you took a vertical photo of a guy in a kayak on a boat. This was the demo I saw. A guy on a kayak on a river or on a lake. It's vertical, but the client's like, no, this is supposed to be horizontal. Or the slot that you're trying to fit that image in is a horizontal. So you make it a horizontal image and you click AI fill or whatever, and it gives you like 5 different options of how it could look. So maybe you want a mountain over here. Okay, maybe you don't want that mountain. Maybe you want more reflective water over here. It just kind of looks at what you're trying to do, looks at what it needs to do to match it up, and it fills it in. Now, I could see that being very handy and saving a lot of time. I'm trying to see what the problem, I think, and I haven't read what everybody's upset about. If there are people upset about that, I haven't read the arguments, but I could see that if Photoshop is still using trained models, AI models trained on art that they don't own or haven't paid for, then that's still like a kind of a slimy problem, right? And then the other thing is, I think that's the crux of it, right? Like, is there any other reason to be upset with AI?
But I'm thinking
this usage of AI.
I was going to play devil's advocate because I have a Facebook friend who, he's kind of the absolutist in under no circumstances should you ever use AI for any art, no matter what, for that very reason. Like, no part of it, not in your own work, not where you're redrawing over top of it, nothing. Because in the end, it's stole from someone. That's his position. And it's a good argument. I can't really argue with that,
Yeah. So let's say you fight that fight and it's a good fight and the fight is lost. Are you just now a Luddite and you're
that's kind of my
stuck?
Position. And that's my position is I feel like I went through this and I can't remember what podcast it was that we did a deep dive on this. So I don't want to go deep, but
right.
I feel like I went through this with the stock illustration, where we illustrators put our images into stock catalogs. They sold it for, in many cases, a tenth of what a client would have paid us to do a commission.
Yeah.
And so we participated in stripping our industry of money. We just made our work cheaper for our own clients to use instead of commissioning new work.
Right.
And once we realized what we were doing, a pretty large group of us, this is in the 90s, the later 90s, we tried to put the cat back in the bag. We formed the Illustrators Partnership of America, the IPA. You can look it up. I spent hundreds of hours on this. There were illustrators who spent thousands of hours. I was lightly involved. There were illustrators who were heavily involved. In the end, the stock catalogs grew through the whole time we were trying to get artists to pull their artwork out. The stock catalogs kept getting bigger every year. So in other words, more people were participating than were not, right?
Yeah.
And of those artists that were participating, more and more were making a lot of money. And I had been making $20,000 a year, which isn't a lot, but back in the late 90s, that was a good chunk of revenue. I could have leaned into it and grown the number of images that I had in the stock catalog over the next 5 to 8 years. And I calculate that I lost out on hundreds of thousands of dollars by doing the right thing, right? By trying to take control of an industry. And my position is, no one loves Walmart. Like if you go on social media and you talk about Walmart and you say, hey guys, who loves Walmart? All you're going to get is hate, right? I hate that place.
Right.
They hate it for every reason. And everybody ends up in there at one point during the year, even when they don't want to. They end up going to Walmart because it's convenient, for all the reasons, right? And so Walmart, with all this hate, still thriving. Okay, same with Amazon. Everybody hates Amazon in the children's book industry because they're knocking out the mom and pop bookstores, right?
Yeah.
Amazon, bigger than ever. That's how I see AI art. You can fight it.
Right.
Maybe we should be fighting it. In the end, there will be illustrators who are going to make a ton of money using it. And then there's going to be the people who don't, who are going to, in many cases, get left behind in one way or another. That's my personal feeling.
The quality that AI can generate is, I don't think the people that stay behind are going to be able to keep up, because there was a guy I saw on Instagram yesterday, and he was claiming he's an half AI artist, half regular artist. He was making not trying to hide it at all. He's basically using it as a start and then painting on top of it. And the work was absolutely gorgeous. He knew how to use it, and he knew which image to grab, and he knew how to paint on top of it and modify it. And it was so good. I'll share that with you guys if you want. I'll try to find it, because I took pictures of it because it was so high quality. I was like, man, that is a next level. And there was an image I sent you guys last week that almost looked like a Norman Rockwell style painting, but a little more stylized. That was all AI, and it was so good. And people who say that, the computer can't emulate an image that has feeling or emotion, crazy. It looked fantastic.
It's wishful thinking. It's the same. We're going through the same thing. That if you actually did a deep dive on history with the automobile and how much hatred the automobile had, and how everyone was saying there's no way it will ever replace a team of horses for plowing fields, for taking people here or there. It's unreliable. It breaks down. Look at they've got another flat tire over there. Right. I mean, seriously, do a deep dive on the history of almost any technology, and you will find that there were for many, many years an opposition that was convinced that it would never become anything at all, never do.
Now, Jake, what are you showing on the screen here?
So this is just example. It's Adobe and Firefly. So, here's an elk in the woods, and they say put it in an alleyway. Now in this section, I want a red sign, a red arrow sign, and it'll just add a red arrow sign.
Oh, you
This is from
got
Corey
to be
Loftus. He posted this in his Instagram account. I just want to read what he says. He says, need an alibi about where you were last night? Want to accuse your partner of adultery by adding a stranger to CCTV stills? Do your parents need photographic proof about where you are right now? What about some bruises added to your arm? Want to put a gun in someone's hand? Want to show the president laying motionless on the floor of the Oval Office surrounded by medical personnel? Now you can with Adobe Photoshop plus Firefly. No skill required. Just type what you want and spread that society-destroying misinformation. And he says there should be more skill required or more artificial barriers put into place to keep this out of the general population's hands. While some would be positively creative, many would use it for harm. I feel AI regulation is needed now. The initial version of this may be clunky or shoppy, but maybe sloppy, I don't know. But it will only improve to the point of being indistinguishable from reality.
He's correct there.
Yeah.
That is correct.
Yep. So yeah, in the wrong hands, which will be most of the hands, this is not going to not gonna work for society. So that's one of the. I mean, you could also say that for automobiles. A lot of people are saying, like, especially in the town I live in right now, Gilbert, Arizona, it is an automobile town and is the worst place to ride a bike or to walk anywhere. And there's an intersection down the street from my house, which on a weekly basis gets shut down because of an accident. I'm not kidding.
Wow.
There's always an accident in this one intersection. It's just a normal intersection. So you could, the argument's still there. Like, automobiles are not a complete positive thing for society, but yet here we are. They are easier than owning and maintaining a horse. At the cost of what, So are we going to solve this today in this podcast? But I just wanted to point out, we're not. I just wanted to point out what the next AI application is and where it's going. It's crazy to me how, like, I started following the AI stuff a year ago, last spring. I was aware of it maybe 18 months ago when I started seeing artists posting AI stuff on ArtStation as sort of experiment. Like, hey, I got in on a sort of a whatever it is when they bring you on as like a early tester or something like that on some of these, and they're showing some of the stuff that they're making. I thought, oh, this is really interesting. This is some pretty amazing results. But to see how much it's evolved. Remember when we first tried Midjourney, Lee, and we were showing Will about it, like last August, I think it was.
Yeah, it was clunky.
Yeah. And you look at it now, and now Adobe's like, yeah, and here you are. You just select this area, click it, and that's what you do. Have you seen? I'm going to show you one more thing here.
I tried to download it while we were talking, the Photoshop, and it gave me a prompt that said generative whatever fill is available for beta, and I pressed the download, and then nothing's happened. There's no download or anything, so I don't know. I don't know how to get it.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
Oh, you're kidding me.
Wow.
Jake's showing this screen where he is like, it's a still photo of a dog, and you like select the head, and you can make the dog turn and do whatever, like a horse.
These are things that I said could never exist. I remember watching movies where they would enhance, they'd have a video from CCTV or something, and it'd be grainy, and they'd say enhance. They just magically, remember that?
Yeah.
Like 20, 30 years ago.
And you're like, that's BS.
That's so stupid. No, there's no way the computer could ever fill in something that doesn't even exist.
Right.
Well, we're here.
Yeah. Yep. So
I saw that one up on the right. Yeah.
It's the same. Have you seen that one, Lee? We're this
it's the same woman in
So essentially, it's the same.
We're on Society or School of Visual Storytelling on YouTube.
Yeah. So it's the same woman, but they're using AI to change her race. So she goes from Asian to black to like freckled,
and it's changing facial features, body. It's more than just skin color. It's changing
the shape of everything: the eyes, the nose, the mouth.
Wow.
Oh man.
So that's a scary. It is a scary thing. I mean, like you have people like Elon and I can't remember the name of the guy from Google who quit, saying it's getting too scary. I don't want to be a part of this anymore. We need to come up with rules. Like the person asking or Corey Loftus saying, it's time for us to make rules now, pass laws now.
Mm-hmm.
And they're pontificating the Google guy that it's too late,
It's too late. Because so let's say we pass laws in the US, like, you can't use AI for anything. That doesn't stop anybody outside of US law, right?
Right.
Like,
I mean, you kind of almost have to conclude that in court, in a court of law, they're having CCTV footage is going to be disqualified. And it's not going to be the shoe that drops. It's not going to be.
They'd have to have two cameras with corroborating feeds.
I don't even know if they could do that, because they can interpret. Look at what we just saw. They could make another angle. The computer could interpret and make another angle.
Oh my goodness!
It's going to go back to eyewitness. You have to have
eyewitness, like faulty as it could be. I'm just going to quit. I'm moving to the mountains. I've just decided I'm going to hang this after this podcast. I'm done.
But you know what? It's such an exciting time to be alive at the same time. As scary as some of this stuff is, the technology that we do have to work with. I mean, I'm having the time of my life in my publishing career, working on my own books, moving at my own pace, writing what I want to write, illustrating what I want to illustrate, being able to use the tools online to sell it, having access to Amazon KDP. It's just so much fun.
Right. And I would say, like, if you're an artist, it really does. If you want to make a career as an artist, your job is going to be, some jobs definitely going to be replaced by a person using AI, right?
Mm-hmm.
But no one can replace your personality and your point of view and your uniqueness. And so, like, we have, friend of the podcast, Anthony Wheeler, he is leaning in hard on live streaming because what people need is human connection, and a live stream is that human connection until the AI Twitch bot is able to replicate all human live streaming connection. But in the meantime, I mean, that's what I think. Just having a face and a personality and a voice attached to the work that you're making can make a difference as well. First question.
All right.
This comes from Brian. What do you do when you feel like you're not making any forward progress? I go on Midjourney and mess around all afternoon. No. What do you do when you're not making any forward progress?
That's such an open-ended
interesting question, because how do you not make forward? If you're making anything, you're moving in a direction. I guess forward progress is the key, but I mean, even making a false step is progress, because you learn sometimes what not to do. So if I make a mistake, is that not moving in the right direction?
Right.
Of course not.
I'll give an example. Like, I worked my butt off to make
Jake, give me screen sharing, because I just downloaded the new AI Photoshop. Let's see what it does. I don't want to dive too deep, but I just this is a painting I made yesterday. Let's extend the canvas. So I basically doubled the width of my canvas, at least, maybe more. And then I've made a selection around it, and now I'm just going to do there's a button now that pops up. It just says generative fill, and it says you agree to sell your soul. There's weird little pop-up comes up.
You agree that some of your friends are going to hate you?
Okay, so interesting because it like before when you do your content fill, it just gives you kind of the screen pops up and like, do you like this? Yes or no. But now there's a little box that came up. It says, if you leave this blank, it'll just do the normal content fill. I'm going to say, let's just say
add an island.
Perfect. Because this is a water scene for those of you guys who are just listening. Add an island.
It's like a house with a guy in the water, and there's a guy on a sailboat next to it.
With palm trees.
Add an island with palm trees. Let's see.
And a monkey.
Let's see how specific we can get. I am so curious to what this is going to be because it's just a big white square right now.
You might still have a job if this turns out bad.
As a test. If the podcast ends like immediately, you guys know this was a really good thing, and we just all walked out. Oh,
that's no good.
That's really nasty.
You guys have to see this on video. It is so incredibly bad.
You've got 6 more months.
You definitely are not going to be out of a job. You guys, this looks like I literally, and this is my original is a watercolor painting, limited palette. It looks like I just cut out some palm trees from like a Bahamas beach ad and just pasted them into the scene. That was really, really bad. I mean, that was as bad as
now, can you just say match?
I'm just going to say generate because then it'll try to match what's on my normal screen.
Yeah, we'll see if it adds another sailboat.
What about using the autofill feature that you were talking about, Jake?
Yeah, I'll try that. I'll show you that one next. I mean, that's like the classic. I mean, if you're not using autofill, you should be because there's a million reasons to use. Oh, that was better.
That's actually
interesting.
Better.
It was better. What? It's not
why
great.
Is there like a steam, like a freighter? Or
they added a steamboat to my image.
Like what do they call it?
They added an abstract steamboat.
Yeah,
oil tanker.
But at least it's in the vein of the palette. So, but that looks like the normal content fill to me, though.
Yeah, I think you're asking a lot of it. So just do like a normal, like maybe make it it's vertical. Maybe make it just on both sides. An inch on both sides.
Here, why don't I do this? I'm just gonna make a little space up here, and I'll just say add a mountain. How about that?
Okay. Yeah. Select a little section, add a mountain. I see what you've done to flip the canvas there a little bit to add a little more room.
Yeah, I had to right there because it was originally too thin, and I was like, I need more room for the boat.
So, a real practical thing would be make that not look like you flipped it.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
I'm going to do that anyway. So yeah, that's a good idea.
All right. It's generating. It's thinking its hard AI thoughts right now. It's questioning life.
The robots are working behind the scene. Wow, that's awful.
Yeah.
Okay, you guys got time. You guys got time. This, here's the thing. Here's what I'm now realizing. I'll stop my share.
It did light
this
it
thing
from
is
the right
it's
side,
made
though.
It's made for photography.
Yeah,
it is.
And it does not understand that this is a watercolor and that it has to match the texture and the palette.
It did match the color and the lighting.
A little bit. It's pretty bad.
It didn't. Yeah, it did match color and lighting. But yeah, you're right. It's. So here's the little thing that Adobe doesn't know and everybody else knows. A Photoshop is actually used to illustrate things.